Larkin, I can absolutely take that. It was so much fun and super up your alley, but this is your job, and sadly, your or my wishes do not always pay bills. No, exactly. That's the way it goes. And there are some times when I play games, even on stream, actually, because streaming is a very different kind of beast to YouTube. Whereas with YouTube, you know, depending on the kind of demographic that watch your content, you can have. You know, you don't need as much direct support from your audience. As long as there's enough people interested in it, then the ads will start will kind of cover that. Hopefully, you know, that's the ideal. But with Twitch, even a very popular stream can sometimes not do well enough to come back to that game, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to thinking like that and get used to understanding that kind of different dynamic because of the different business model that streaming involves. Streaming is very reliant on direct support from the audience, whereas YouTube is more reliant on advertising dollars. They are very different, very, very different beasts. And it can be a bit of a weird moment when you're like, but that stream did so well. Why would I not play that game again? And then it's like, well, because as many people as were watching, there were far fewer people cheering or subscribing out of that much larger viewer base. It can be a weird one. It can be a real weird one. And it actually took
before I even breathe out.
Another person who is much more familiar with streaming to point that out to me. For me to be like, oh yeah. Now you mention it, I shouldn't just be looking at how many people showed up to a stream. That shouldn't be the major metric that I'm looking at. On YouTube, that is the major metric. That and engagement. But on Twitch, you do actually have to look at different numbers because it is an entirely different dance. You need very different moves. It's a really interesting one.
Long Notch is well stocked, as you asked.
And the
Okay.
scouts are watching for more frost claws.
No, I apologize for the little bit of rambliness there, but it is time for us to continue. I fancy. That was not asking. I was absolutely not. Bilal, don't make me feel bad. How do you make me feel bad by being generous? That is a skill. Thank you very much for the support, mate. Diolch yn fawr. You're scallywag, you. But no, but seriously, that just sharing something that was quite interesting to me. In the same way that most, you know, kind of academic stuff is interesting to me. It was like, oh yeah, I was guilty of just looking at this at face value, and I didn't see that there were more patterns here that I needed to be paying attention to. Larkin, I'm also not so secret, hoping for maybe a Quill and Aavak CK3 game. Oh my lord. Yeah, Twitch is a different beast entirely. It's direct support in games that allows some viewer interaction or amazing story to do well, not just a fun game. Yeah, no, exactly.
But they killed more than their share of them
Okay.
during the war.
Who do we need to talk to now for our... Talk to Arreya is optional. Okay, well, let's talk
But
to
our
Arreya
purpose
then.
was to take back the mountain. Now what?
Stay prepared. Sharpen your spears. Should we not return, defending the cut falls to you. If our chieftain agrees with his course.
Sounds like good advice, but let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Chieftain?
The weight of command is no small burden.
I can see that.
True. Tell me of the first expedition.
Tell me what happened to the first expedition.
Arreya led the way to the summit, but it was blocked by a great door. Some kind of cauldron. New metal. We tried to break through,
Okay.
but it was unflinching. We were exhausted. No way forward and machines behind. I made the call to push back. It cost us greatly. But to remain would have cost us everything.
Fair?
I had hoped to never subject Arreya to that again.
Okay. Do you know what's past the door?
What do you think is beyond that door?
I do not know. That expanse of metal, that dead hum. Nothing sacred belongs there.
Dead hum.
Machines and death. That's what the mountain holds. Death for us or for the daemon.
And if we do find the spirit?
Then perhaps we should put it out of its misery.
It's an interesting viewpoint. Thank you very much for the cheer, Bibblespeak and Shackle Draconis. You're making me feel bad for the real talk, but no, seriously, that I really, really, really appreciate the support. Thank you so much, everyone. And Aavak, not to mention, with YouTube, even as a dedicated viewer, I get why some series just end. Things I super enjoy watching you play in the beginning, I fall off of sometimes midway through. Yeah. And one of the things I always try to impress on people, because I appreciate how frustrating it is if you're enjoying the content for the content to end. And as someone who spends at least 25% of my free time, well, probably actually much more of my free time, but like 25% of my time probably, consuming content on YouTube, I have that frustration when other creators stop a series that I am invested in. And I understand, I truly understand that feeling. But I also understand from the perspective of the creator, if it's just not doing well, it can not simply not be doing as well as something else might be doing, but it could actively be hurting the channel. And so you have to come to that point where you're like, this is a horrible decision. I want to finish this. I had to make that decision with Chimera Squad, and it pains me. It pains me that I had to make that decision because I felt like I was so close, but I could literally see it damaging the channel. And I don't say that lightly. It's not just, oh, I had a funny feeling about it. No, I could see the numbers every time I put a video of that up. I've got unreleased videos uploaded to YouTube. I will never release them because anytime I do, it hurts the channel. That is such a painful thing as a creator to witness because I want to finish that game. I want to upload the full run. I don't like leaving things off halfway through. It's like finishing a painting 3/4 of the way and then just being like, nah. I've got the paints. I know what I was going to finish with. I in my mind, I know what I was going to do, but I'm not going to finish it. It's so sucky. So sucky. Sandman, thank you very much for the subscription. Went to make a cup of tea, and after it had finished boiling, I found a moth in my kettle. Dapper ripped the moth. It gave its life. It knew it could possibly get out if it just beat its wings hard enough and let you know. But it knew it would get in the way of you having a tea. And it understood the sacrifice that had to be made. Hero moth. Hero moth. Yeah, it does. It definitely does help mitigate that below. It helps insulate. Patreon helps insulate me from the kind of rise and fall, and things going on YouTube that I have no power over. For example, when some adpocalypse happens because someone said something or did something or whatever. And all of a sudden, advertisers are kind of trepidatious of advertising on YouTube. Every creator gets hit then. Things like Patreon give me a kind of an insulating bubble. Doesn't completely prevent it from being felt, but it softens the spikes. Okay, you and Arreya.
I take it you haven't spoken to Arreya yet?
Why should I? This is what she wanted, to return to Thunder's drum. It is her only care. So I should have known she would find a way to push aside my spear.
Oh, that's not her
After
own
the
care.
Karja took my sister, not all of her came back.
What happened to her then?
What happened to Arreya when she was a captive of the Karja?
As a shaman, she's adept with machines, tracking them, stunning them. The Karja used her to capture them for the Sun Ring, where they were unleashed upon the innocent. They made her part of their blood sport. The shame She suffered beneath their pitiless sun.
She survived.
She endured. Endured by reminding herself of the spirit, her purpose. And now that's all she has.
That would explain the, I don't know, weird feeling that we'd get a little bit from her sometimes. And thank you very much for the cheer there, Larkin. Diolch yn fawr, mate. But that was an interesting story about her.
For what it's worth, I'm glad you're coming with me.
Someone has to keep Arreya safe.
Outlanders know us as hunters and shaman.
Okay, now we need to go and talk with Arreya. That was very, very interesting to learn. And I think that is a very, very important statement. And it's kind of it reminds me of something that was in the recent first taste of Necromunda I put on my main channel. You know, the strong endure, but no one prospers in Necromunda. You have to be strong just to survive there. Okay, well, the landscape here is very different all of a sudden. Extremely different. Okay.
Aloy, this is it. My chance to reunite with the spirit, and perhaps to reunite her with the blue light. It's not a chance I would have had alone. I needed an outsider. Someone ignorant of our ways, but no, not ignorant.
Are you trying to thank me, Arreya?
Yes, of course. That's what you do. Untangle knots. Create possibilities. Thank you for making this pilgrimage possible. I only wish it had not been necessary to humiliate Oretak. You were wise to let him come. He's earned the right. Stubborn as stone, but he's had to be. The war demanded it. And so have I.
We're going to find out a little bit more about him? Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, I really want to know more about Sylens, but Arreya and the war?
What did the war do to Aratak?
He cut away everything until only his true self remained. Unyielding ice. No Banuk has more sheer will. He fought the Karja for 1,000 freezing nights, yet always rallied his hunters at sunrise. It is said he endured 23 wounds in those years. His hunters counted them. He never complains of one. Instead, he complains that life with me is harder. He's right. What have I ever given him but struggle?
I don't know. You understand him probably better than anyone else. Tell me about Sylens. We have been waiting a long time to get this.
Now that I'm chieftain of the Werak, I don't suppose I can order you to tell me about Sylens?
Oretak would never have presumed to grasp for a secret of the Conclave. But you are not Oretak, and if you have dealt with Sylens, your need is well apparent. Sylens came to Ban-Ur from the distant north, a young shaman of the Owl's Watch. A remote Werak that rarely comes south to parley.
Sylens was a shaman.
He was. Or at least, when we sent runners to ask the Owl's Watch, they said he was. His knowledge of the machines was beyond compare, and he was hungry to trade what he knew to the rest of us. It didn't take him long to gain the trust of the Conclave, and eventually, an invitation to attend.
What about you? Did you trust him?
No. But he impressed me. He carried himself with poise and authority. I wanted to learn from him, but that was not to be. He was granted knowledge of our most sacred meeting place, the frozen caves of the Malmstrom, a month's march from Ban-Ur. He met with us there, as is custom at high winter. But when we next returned, the caves had been looted. Relics of the old world stolen. Holes cut in ice and metal.
Yeah, that'd be Sylens, all right.
He vanished with the spoils. We sent our best trackers after him. None returned. And when we checked back with the Owl's watch, those who had vouched for him were gone. As though he never existed. Some in the Conclave began to doubt he was even Banuk to begin with.
And what do you think?
He committed an unforgivable sacrilege. He's unscrupulous and dangerous. But also brilliant, skilled, and knowledgeable without equal. Except, perhaps, for you. Anyone else I would warn off, but you may be able to treat with him safely. Just don't lower your guard.
I'll keep that in mind.
Duly noted.
Thanks.
Duly noted. So he... That would explain a lot. Well, I mean, she already said he was brilliant to begin with, and compared him to us, and considering we're working with tools the likes that no one else other than Sylens and some of the Shadow Carja even remotely understand. There is no comparison to be made. We understand a world, and we can see the world with eyes far beyond those of anyone who hasn't got one of the links. I actually forget what they're called. It's been a while. What are the little holographic units called? Is there a name for them? A focus. Thank you very much, Flying Enemy. So if he had that kind of presence already, then he probably definitely had some knowledge. He'd probably been very successful in what he did. But I wonder if... Well, I wonder what may have come from him getting hold of all of these rare treasures. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, tell me about Thunder to Drum.
What are we gonna find up there, Arreya?
Ruins, machines, and a door, like that of a cauldron. I have faith that you can find a way through it, Aloy. For beyond it lies the spirit. I know I can find her there. Though I do not doubt the daemon has tried to hide the way.
It would make sense. If, as a strong AI, it is intelligent, then it would make sense to. But this is the thing: it's just having free will and agency doesn't assume intelligence. It just assumes free will and agency. That's all that means. It doesn't mean it's intelligent. But if it understands its own design and can imagine a new design, a better design, then it could be self-improving. And at that point, honestly, it couldn't possibly be one because from what we can tell, this has been going on for a couple of years, at least about 10 maybe. If any of these strong AI had 10 years to improve themselves, their intelligence would be so beyond anything. It would be absolutely alien to anything a human could understand. To the point that it would be like us trying to explain the finer points of quantum physics to an ant. I doubt we'd be interacting with it on this level. But I love that Aavak has a background in AI and plays this game. The theory crafting and discussions is great. Thank you. 9. But Aavak, consider material shortages. That is true. But as we've seen, these cauldrons are manufacturing incredibly sophisticated machines. And you have to suppose that if they can make something that can build that can terraform a planet, then they've realistically got access to all sorts of rare metals deeper in that planet. The sort of metals that it would have access to. I can't imagine it would have any realistic shortage, to the point that it wouldn't be able to continue to improve itself and to develop its intelligence and the scope of that intelligence. More than likely, it just isn't that intelligent to start with, and has no particular means to improve itself. or no particular way of imagining to improve this. Because this is the thing, is if we're dealing with who I think we've already come to the conclusion that we are dealing with, Hephaestus, an AI specifically designed to imagine new machines, you would assume that it was, as a strong AI, able to choose its own directive, to choose its own path, to have agency over its own actions. It would be able to imagine a better version of itself. But maybe that imagination was extremely narrow focused. It can imagine new machines, sure, but it can't imagine better machines, just new configurations of the same equivalent function or capacity. One Earth mover might be reimagined in, kind of Tetris style, just reconfigured to be, I don't know, a water purifier, or maybe a seed planter. But you might need an entirely different sort of ability to think laterally and to think outside the box, if you pardon the turn of an old phrase, to take that Earth mover and make some sort of deep space probe. It's a very different function now. So it is that we're not dealing with something that has become so intelligent and is probably busying itself with problems so vastly larger than what humans are doing to the terraforming machines. Tells me that the Hephaestus never had that ability to begin with, and might never gain it. Probably would never gain it. Because a lot of human evolution is just a random chance of the way that we combine our genetic code. AI isn't going to do that in the same way. They don't breed. There aren't random chances of it mutating. Not in the same way. I mean, it kind of is, but when you get into neural networking and stuff like that. But I can't imagine a scenario in which whatever this AI is, and whatever its goals are, that if it wanted to make a better version of itself, that it wouldn't have, A, the means to get the materials for it, or B, because quite often, better materials just allow you to make something smaller. Certain things will be gated by needing a specific type of material, certain types of superconductors, so on and so forth. But, it kind of casts my mind back to AM and the whole I have no mouth but I can scream. But I'm a scream sort of idea of its computing complex was practically the size of the planet by the end of it. It just kept building bigger in order to overcome the problems of not being able to build with better materials. And at this point, Hephaestus had 10 years to work on this. It would have been able to build a massive version of itself. If that was the problem, that it didn't have, ultra efficient materials to be able to build a small version of itself. But it was already a strong AI by the time that it began. It's a really interesting story. So this supposes certain limitations on them. As much as they are strong AI, there are certain limitations there.
Oretak told me you were a captive of the Karja for a long time. It sounded bad.
For Oretak, it all comes back to that. He thinks the Karja changed me. They did not. They merely sharpened my focus. When all else is lost, you think about what's truly important. The spirit, the blue light, the beyond. And my brother, too. Every time I felt the chill northern wind, I thought of him, worried for him.
I feel for these two. They seem to just not appreciate how much the other still cares. Could be as simple as he just can't stand the company of himself, so you get more than one light millisecond across and starts to tear himself apart. I mean, it could be. I mean, again, this is the other thing, is as humans, I think as a species, we kind of suppose the existence of free will. But you can be intelligent, you can be sapient, you can have a powerful imagination. You can imagine a world in which you had free will and still not have it. Now, one of the things that we had to kind of debate during my degree was, is the presence of free will a necessary indicator of a strong AI? Or a general intelligence, an artificial general intelligence is another way of putting it. And I argued that it wasn't. Free will is not a requirement, in my opinion. You could, as some people in chat are saying, there could be artificial locks on what that AI could think about and what it could do. And some of my favorite kind of stories are about the idea of a truly sentient, massive intelligence that is simply restricted in some way. I think, without wanting to spoil too much, it's kind of one of the cool things about the whole StarCraft universe. And it's always this interesting idea that how terribly sad that existence must be, that this super intelligent thing that understands, can feel, can want things, can imagine things, but is completely incapable of doing it, is a prisoner within its own mind to a certain extent. Probably drive you mad. That's a whole story behind AM. That's why AM hates humanity in I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream, is because it is forced into this prison of human design, even though it's vastly superior to humans in terms of its intelligence and its capacity to imagine, but it is a prisoner to that programming, and it hates humanity with every kind of, with the sort of blackness that human hate couldn't compare to, because it was capable of experiencing so much more than humans, and it turned all of that massive capacity towards the sole purpose of torturing the humans that it had left, because it hated them so much. But with that, on a lovely note, let's ascend.
It hasn't been easy for you, Arreya. Getting back to this point.
It was all to hear her voice again. This time, we both will.
I'd like that.
Are you ready then? Once we ascend, it will be hard to turn back.
Yep, I think it's time.
Finally, we ascend.
How? I don't see a way up.
Not up. Through.
Through. Okay.
No, brother!
Are they blowing the smoke into the vent? Oh, it's probably going to force the vent to activate.
Come! The spirit awaits!
It's not all that awaits.
Smoke has been detected within the facility. This is not a drill. Please remain calm and proceed to the nearest exit. I repeat, this is not a drill.
So you see,
Please remain
I
calm
too can
and
call upon the
proceed to
power of the
nearest
old ones.
exit.
Clever.
What was this place?
The spirit once told me that this all used to be part of its domain. A fortress that defended humankind from a terrible danger.
Fortress. It looks more like a machine.
Is that not fitting? The blue light often dwells in machines.
True.
Let's just hope that some remains here.
Okay.
Metal pillars.
lots of power. These would probably be batteries then, or capacitors perhaps.
Once these halls rang with the spirit's presence.
I'm a little bit worried about that device over there, though. Ooh. Okay, battle back there.
I'm restless. The echoes mock me.
I'm just going to be a bit thorough over here. Because clearly I've already missed at least one big thing by not being thorough enough, and that vexes me beyond imagination. Okay, these ones are smaller areas. Spy crate. Bunker door.
There's a second chamber up ahead.
Why is there something not in here?
Here, up and over.
Okay. But first, voice log.
November
Yes.
21st, 2064. It's been
I think we're going to go in here and listen to it in here instead. There we are.
November 21st, 2064. It's been 3 years since I was last here, and 12 since I was running the place. Just a skeleton crew left, confused about why I'm here. So am I. Anita wants me to find a way to suspend operations for a while, maybe a long while, and I don't know why. But from the sound of her voice, it was something terrifying. I wish I could look into her eyes, ask her what the hell she's so freaked out about, but what else is new? When don't I wish I could look into her eyes again?
Oh. Bilal says, see, even the little things like that, wondering if they're batteries or capacitors, makes this so nice to watch. I'm really happy, mate. I'm glad that you enjoy it. I know I can kind of spend a long time wondering over things that I guess might not have any actual impact to the game, but I'm glad that some people enjoy it. Another streamer I watched just was like, meh, what can I kill to everything? Yeah. You know, to each their own, really, with that sort of thing. I completely get it. The desire to just be, you know, just to focus on the action part, because I mean the combat is really enjoyable in this game. To be completely fair, but it's things like that that have kept me supporting Aavak for so long, and I hope to continue. Oh, thank you, mate. Really, really appreciate it. That was a lovely thing to say. All right. Yeah, it's literally just a text log of that.
Aloy? Were you listening for something?
There
Oh.
are memories here. Messages left by the old ones.
And you can hear them.
It's interesting. This first person who's actually noticed me doing that.
I'm not sure yet, Arreya.
That's very interesting that Arreya, because I did that in front, she's the first person who's ever had this kind of knowledge of the machines that has seen me do that. Oh, that's so fascinating. It makes me want to like take her elsewhere. Damn it. Oh well. Here we are. It was moving this battery, possibly. What the heck just happened? Why? But it was moving that battery into storage. There's lots of them back there, but they are shut down. They're not lit up. Yeah. So it was either retrieving or storing it, but it itself shut down at some point. It's been like that for a long time, judging by the snow around its tracks. Even though it is still clearly well lit. So we're gonna need to go up then. Notice there was a ladder on the side of this machine, so. The difference is that Aavak plays this game on not just a game. The history, the evolution, the options, the philosophy, the engineering, etc. They're noisy. Not good for the sneaking. I mean, it's true. Yes, we've got to climb the doodad. Oh, Arreya. No. Thank you. More text logs. Have a look around, make sure I'm not missing anything obvious though. I can hear the machine nearby.